restless. I am so restless. And this changing world leaves me speechless. I am lost for words, but I kept my nerve.
Welcome to The Fallen State. I'm Jesse Lee Peterson. Is there a moral molecule that makes us do good? I have with me Dr. Paul Zak, author, professor, and chair of the Department of Economic Science at Claremont Graduate University. Thank you so much for being here.
Absolutely, thanks.
Do you believe that human beings, that we are born in a fallen state?
The evidence suggests that we are constantly battling between doing things that are selfish and doing things that are selfless. And that battle goes on in the brain, and it's driven by genes, our upbringing, our current life events. So are we in a fallen state? I guess we're constantly trying not to fall into that state.
Does that mean that we have a choice whether to be in the fallen state or not?
It's a very deep question. So from a neuroscience perspective, we are balancing self and other all the time. And my lab identified particular signals in the brain that motivate us to connect to others. And we do that because there's value in being in community. Right? We're social animals, we need others to survive. It's very difficult to survive on our own. So we have to invest in the appropriate behaviors that keep us in community. And yet occasionally we slip, we fall, and we engage in selfish behaviors that hurt other people. And we do that because it's expedient, because it moves our goals forward. But it tends to be a very short-term strategy, where the long-term strategy is be nice to people, be a fair dealer, be honest, be kind.
Sometimes people do things to hurt themselves as well, not just other people. What causes that?
So the causes of that are multifactorial from a neuroscience perspective. You may be born with just bad genes. So we see that in studies we've done with psychopaths. Just, I think, unfortunately, got just a bad genetic draw. The second is a bad childhood. So you may have good genes, your parents are abusive or they abandon you, and then the brain systems that allow us to be connecting, to be nurturing, to love other people just don't develop. And the third is current life events. So suppose I got in an accident on the way here. Now I'm stressed out, now I'm happy, I'm late, right? So I'm having a bad day and I may act out in a bad way. So it is difficult when we see other people to differentiate between you're a bad person and you're having a bad day.
Why do people call you Dr. Love?
So my lab was the first to identify a chemical in the brain called oxytocin that is this chemical that tells us that someone around us is safe or familiar or trustworthy, and it motivates us to treat them in that way in return. So you're nice to me, my brain makes this chemical, says, oh, you should be nice to Jesse, he's a cool guy. Where your producer, Bill, who we met earlier, he's a sketchy character, I can tell you that right now, right? So we're doing this all the time. I'm kidding. We're doing this all the time, right? We're trying to balance the value of connecting to somebody new with the appropriate fear of not being too open. And then I try to apply that to my own life. And so we showed, for example, that touch releases oxytocin. So as you know, I gave you a hug before we got here. So I'm trying to create an environment around myself where I increase the amount of love in the world by stimulating the release of this chemical. So
that's amazing.
That may sound grandiose, but you can do it one person at a time. Just connect to that one person.
This oxytocin that you mentioned, is it a liquid form or is it energy? What is it exactly?
Yeah, it's a brain chemical, so it's liquid that the brain produces only when I have a reason to produce it. So it's not just kind of floating around. It's an acute response to a positive social interaction with other human beings. So when I hugged you, your brain probably made a little oxytocin. When you hug your wife, your children, much more, right? So it's a graded response.
Right.
And that graded response tells us how much we should engage with others around us, at least on a first cut.
So it causes you to love people. Can it also cause you to hate another person?
That's a great question. So if I make the other person seem like an outgroup member, I'm told that they are dangerous, then I'll stay within my group and I'll bond in my group, but I could behave badly towards others. And so it's not there's no free lunch neurologically, right? It does lots of things.
Right.
But in general, oxytocin is made in the brain when we have these positive interactions. and it motivates us again to behave in positive ways towards others. I think that's really big news because we're kind of told in biology and economics, we're all selfish and we're just here for ourselves.
Right.
Who are those people? I don't like to be around people like that. I'm sure you don't either. So the only way we can engage with others is to have a signal in our brain that says, now I got a little happiness kick inside that reminds me to keep doing this.
That's amazing. So, do all people produce this oxytocin?
Another great question. So I've literally been around the world testing this, everywhere from boardrooms to the rainforest of Papua New Guinea. And everyone I've tested, we have a stimulation test. We have a way to make the brain make this. Almost everybody makes it. So 95% of the people I've tested around the world make this substance. Now the story gets a little more complicated. It doesn't affect everyone equally, partially because it has to be made and then taken up by a receptor. So we've done studies, for example, of people with psychopathology. We've done studies with women who are sexually abused, and they don't process this chemical the same way. Those receptors are blocked or damaged or missing. And so the work we did in the early 2000s, there was an explosion of clinical studies of things like autism, schizophrenia, of which oxytocin only has mild effects. Because you have the chemical in your body, it's that the receptor is damaged in these individuals.
Is it sexual in nature?
Oh yeah, it is a reproductive hormone classically. So it's released during childbirth, contracts the uterus to push the baby out. It causes milk flow for breastfeeding, and both men and women release it during sex. But in general, for most of us, we release it, we feel relaxed. I don't know why I feel so relaxed around you or Kelly or Bill or whomever, but I just unconsciously, my body says, yeah, these people are cool.
So when two men hug each other or two women embrace, this oxytocin doesn't come out, right? Because
It does, yeah.
Well, wouldn't it make two men or two women feel sexual toward each other?
No, I mean, sexual attraction is more complicated than a single signal, right? So it's driven by things like testosterone, estrogen levels. Because nature is conservative, you have these kind of similar pathways. So for example, the love I have for my wife and the love for my children, the love for my friends, all works on similar pathways in the brain, but they have sort of shades of variation.
Amazing. You gave a very interesting TED Talk on the differences between men and women. What is the difference between men and women?
How much time do we have? So let's start out with the first thing, which is people are weird.
Right. You can say that again.
We do experiments and measure brain activity while people do a task that we give them to do. We have an average of brain activity, and then we have this huge variation. And sometimes that variation falls down on male and female, old or young. Sometimes it's just kind of random. We can't really tell where the variation comes from. So although at its core, brains work very similarly, for tasks that are kind of interesting, social behaviors, things I study, lots of variation in how brains work. For oxytocin, for example, every study I've run in the last 15 years, on average, women release more than men, and they're subsequently more trustworthy, more generous, more charitable. They're nicer than we are. For men, high levels of testosterone inhibit oxytocin. So who are the least empathic people on the planet? Teenage boys, because you and I used to be teenage boys, and we can tell you for sure we're all about us. The point is that all these chemicals in our brain, roughly about 200 of them, are changing second by second to help us survive and reproduce. There are a whole variety of reasons that men and women are different, and I think, again, from a neuroscience perspective, I just want to embrace that difference. I don't need to explain it, and whatever differences there are, I think if we're accepting of those around us, if we love those around us, in the philia sense, right, if we care about them, the differences can disappear.
You said that women are nicer than men. I've never heard a man or woman say that, because it is a given that women are nicer or not nicer than men.
Really?
Right. Women drive people, not all, but most. They drive men crazy. They drive the children crazy. They drive the cat and the dog crazy.
Right.
Why do you say women are, you're the only one I ever heard that. Why do you say women are nicer when they tend to destroy everything?
Great question. So I'm taking a very narrow neuroscience view, and I mean from a neurologic perspective, they release more oxytocin. So we see more women sort of crying at movies or being concerned for children. I love my kids a ton, but my wife's really more acutely aware of kind of their subtle emotional states. So Women's brains are anatomically different than men's, and they're able to, on average, again, wide variation around the average, but able to assess social information more effectively. That makes them tend to be more caring, more empathic than men are.
But that caring is so destructive. The kids end up hating the mother for that caring because it destroys their innocence. Whereas the father tends not to be so involved like that.
Right.
And the way that he did with the children tend to protect the innocent. Mm-hmm. So is that good that women are that nice and on the kids that way?
I think it's beautiful that nature has made us sexual creatures where we have men and women who raise children, generally. And so you get both those influences. So with my kids, my wife's super careful and safe, just like you said. And my feeling is if I'm going out, you're going out with dad, besides, I don't know, broken bones, get a little bloody, get bruised, fine, it's no big deal.
Right.
We're doing something cool. So I think that balance is very good for children.
How old are your kids?
Teenagers, 18 and 14.
Do they complain about their mother being so into them like that?
Absolutely.
And do you tell the mother to back off?
You know, I tell them to take a break. I say, Mom's trying her best, and she's concerned about you, and let's go for a walk, or let's go to the park, and something else.
But do you ever tell the mother to back off because it's irritating, they don't want it? Do you say, honey, back away?
I try.
And what happens?
I don't make much progress.
You don't?
No. Even Dr. Love fails sometimes.
When I saw the title, Dr. Love, and I noticed that you're tall, you're handsome, you're out there in the world doing your thing. Does your wife ever get jealous of you?
I don't think so. I think it's my job to make sure she feels loved and secure. I don't think she understood early on in our marriage how my job is to travel, my job is to talk to people, my job is to generate support for my lab and develop relationships. And but I think now I'm old, so I'm not a threat to anybody.
How do you deal with it when she does fall into that jealous mode?
Yeah. Oh,
what do you do? And is it due to all this oxytocin stuff coming out, or how do you deal with that when she get into her jealous mode?
Yeah, that's a great question. So oxytocin does appear to kind of drive this jealousy. So you're very attached to that person.
Yeah.
You need that oxytocin release, and so you want to protect him or her from getting away from you. I don't think I'm great at it. I think I just try to take a break and then come back to it later. So I think these hot states that we get into, I think are not great for anybody.
Is there any medicine you can give her to cut the oxytocin off at that moment?
Yeah.
Maybe a quick shot or something?
Yeah.
Stop the flow?
Let's say hugs, not drugs.
So you still believe that women are nicer than men?
Yeah, when we study them in the laboratory, we certainly see that. So
is it a good thing that they're nicer or not so good?
I think it is what it is. I think, we do tasks where we allow people to share money with strangers or donate money to charity. Women always give more money to others, right? So
yeah, they do.
And it correlates with oxytocin. So
is that due to the emotions that the oxytocin brings on?
It does.
So they identify with the emotions.
But women are harder to initiate that kind of social interaction. Men will interact right away.
Right.
It may be a safety issue. But once you treat them nicely, boom, they just want to take care of you. So on average, again, there are women in the extreme of the distribution. There are women with very high testosterone levels. There are men with very low testosterone levels, men with higher estrogen. So we are a variable species, and we should expect, even among our loved ones, some variation.
You also explain women remember further back than men.
Yeah.
Like you can do something that they didn't like 30 years ago, and you've forgotten all about it.
Right.
And here you are just kind of tiptoeing through the tulips. Right. And she'll remind you of something that happened 30 years ago. And why is that?
Women actually have an enlarged area in the brain that helps them access long-term memories. So they're just better at remembering stuff. And again, I could tell you sort of why nature may have done that.
Right.
Women are gatherers, men are hunters. We also tend to be more focused, kind of monotaskers. That's driven a lot by testosterone. And so we like to do one thing at a time. Women are better at integrating information across domains, and so I think it's easier for them to recall all these subtle details, where I'm just doing one thing at a time.
Right, that's right.
Yeah.
Is it good to hold on to memories like that for so long? Because a lot of time they use it against you, and then you can't even remember what really happened, so you're not able to defend it.
Right.
Is that a good idea to hold on to things like that? Or is it better to be like a man and just deal with it, forget it, and move on?
Let it go. Yeah. I think if you can move on, it's probably a little healthier. But sometimes you do want to remember some of those details.
Why?
Oh, maybe it's not, again, it's not just the fights, it's the children's first step. I can't remember my kid's first step, but I'm sure my wife could tell me where it was, what day of the week it was, and my children have all those details. So again, I think it's kind of a beautiful thing that we're, at least we're heterosexuals, we're attracted to people who are so weird compared to us, right? We just can't figure out. So women drive us nuts, but they're super interesting because they're so different than us. And they smell nice too.
And now, a word from our sponsor.
I am so excited. I can't believe it. Finally, the TheFallenState merchandise is here. Look at this beautiful shirt. We have red, white, and black. Comfortable, I like the fit. Really nice t-shirts. And we have mugs. The TheFallenState mug. On the back it says, "Did you have fun?" Did you have fun? A gift. Excellent gifts, both. This is a great way for you to help us. Can you imagine your friends seeing you with this at the office, at the park, in your home? You're gonna love it. Order them now. Go to TheFallenState.tv. Thank you so much. I appreciate it. You are obsessed with morality.
Yeah.
You remember saying that?
I do.
And what is morality?
It's the behaviors that we engage in with other people. And those behaviors either help those other people or are neutral or hurt other people. So moral behaviors are positive social behaviors. So caring, loving, generosity, charity.
Do we get our morality from oxytocin or do we get it from God?
That's a great question. So I'm open to the notion that God implanted in our brains a particular set of structures that motivate us to behave in moral ways, but imperfectly. So the research I've done suggests that we are innately moral creatures, we're innately good creatures, but we are always risking falling into this state of sin, if you will.
Are you a Christian?
I am.
You're a Christian?
Yes.
Oh, that's good to know.
Yeah.
I want to restate this question because I'm black and I'm a little slow here. So, do we get our morality from God or from oxytocin?
It could be both, and it could be neither. No, you hate that answer, right? But
what do you get yours from, oxytocin or God?
I don't know. Oxytocin is working unconsciously in my brain, and so what I've tried to do is create, through my research and my own life, practices where I can induce other people's brain to make oxytocin and I can create a little bit more love in the world. Why am I doing that? I have no idea. Honestly, I have no idea. I think it's certainly following the path that Jesus would take, so I'm happy to say, Jesus is a wonderful guide for me. But at the same time, I don't want to say that people who are not able to do that should be shunned or should be punished, or I think they should be helped. And I think the difficult people around us deserve our compassion and our love and to try to help them to live healthier, happier lives.
I've often said that black Americans, not all, but most are suffering due to the destruction of the family and the lack of moral character. And so as a result of watching your TED Talk, and you mentioned oxytocin and morality in the same talk, is it possible that black people are not getting enough or any oxytocin instead of having a bad relationship with God?
That's a very deep question. I hesitate to answer it because I have not studied, even though we've studied around the world and we see that almost everybody makes oxytocin and it motivates them to care for others. I feel like I don't want to categorize any particular group.
Have you? Oh, go ahead.
So I'll give you an example. When I was in Papua New Guinea, which are dark-skinned, they're African descent. Papua New Guinea is like the Stone Age. I mean, people with really long jaws and no running water, no electricity. Even this is in the rainforest. And these individuals, they will kill women and children when they have disputes with nearby villages. 50 years ago, they were cannibals. There's very little protein in Papua New Guinea. And yet, they accepted me into their village. They opened their houses to me. The men showed me their sacred huts and rituals. I wasn't a threat to them, but they treated me like a brother. And I thought, and by the way, there's no running water, and you have to eat, and they want to shake your hand and hold your hand, and they're very touchy. And I'm thinking, oh my God, I have to put Purell on my hands to eat, and there's no bathrooms, and who knows? I mean, there's no bathrooms. Who knows what your hands are doing? I'm just being honest.
That's right.
After about 2 hours, I thought, what a bad person I am. They're opening their houses to me. I need to be part of their culture. I can't force them to be into my world. I'm in their world. And I really just relaxed into this beautiful setting in which they work an hour a day. They spend a lot of time socializing. They enjoy themselves immensely. It became one of the amazing experiences, peak experiences of my life, because I was accepted, because I was treated almost like a brother. So they're black. So I think almost everybody has the ability to be a moral person, to be a happy person, to be integrated in the community. Does that come from God? Does it come from oxytocin? I'm happy to say it's both.
Even though you don't want to say right now, the problem with black folks, though, is that the reason they're the way they are and that they're so violent and so immoral, it may be due to the lack of oxytocin.
Maybe.
Can I find some oxytocin somewhere to give them? Do you make it in the lab?
Yeah, it's a prescription.
Can I buy some?
It's a prescription drug.
Will you donate some so I can give it to them? I need help.
I think it's intervening in the earliest stages. If families of any race are unstable, it's having a minister, it's having an uncle, it's having a neighbor who steps up and plays the role for the missing parent, who can be a stabilizing force.
I was under the impression that the brain, the purpose of the brain is to cause the physical body to function. And it sounds like the oxytocin stuff is there to awaken the sexual nature between men and women, because it does do that when you embrace or come together like that. But it seems as though our life is controlled by, and you talked about good and evil, it seems as though our life is either controlled by evil or good, which is a spiritual thing, whereas the mind controls the physical body. Do you agree with that?
I'm okay with that. I think I want to keep my scientist hat on and say I have a good understanding of what happens to human beings from a brain perspective, but I don't know what happens in a spiritual perspective.
You do not?
We have looked. I should say, Jesse, we've tried this. We've run experiments, literally in churches, taken blood before and after. People have a church service. We've studied rituals of many kinds. We've studied every religious faith you can think of. And what we find is that when we have these ritual activities, whether they're religious or non-religious, people release oxytocin, they feel connected to their group. We don't find that oxytocin makes people feel more connected to God. It doesn't seem to.
It does not?
It doesn't. So,
but to a human being, but not to God?
Yeah, so wherever that feeling of connection to God comes from, it doesn't seem to be driven by oxytocin.
Right.
So maybe there is another spiritual realm in which that happens. I'm okay with that because I can't measure it, so I can't rule it in or out.
I see.
So I think it's an article of faith.
Tell me what made people good or evil in a scientific way.
Having the right genes to be good. You need the right genes, you need the right
So you can have evil genes?
Yeah, you can have evil genes.
What does an evil gene look like?
It's a gene or a set of genes that has you focus solely on self. And for example, psychopaths see other people as means to an end. So they can kill, they can rape, they can do whatever they want because you're kind of dehumanized. Could be having a bad day. So there's a bunch of factors, high testosterone. So we find in individuals, when we give them synthetic testosterone, they become more self-focused, less giving to others. It's more about them. So if you win a chess match, your testosterone goes up. If you get a raise at work, marry the cutest girl on the block, your testosterone goes up and you become more self-focused because your society said, you're a little mini god. Everyone should be bowing down before you.
And so how does a gene become evil?
That's a great question. Really, because it becomes damaged. So this gene that helps us, things like produce oxytocin, be sensitive to the people around us, if that's damaged, and probably lots of genes that are involved in that, then we just don't have the sense of care.
In the final moments of his life, 32-year-old Jamel Dunn was laughed at, made fun of, and taunted. Cocoa police saying 5 boys ages 14 to 16 watched him drown. The teens getting their biggest laughs when Dunn screams and goes under.
We not finna help your ass? You finna down here?
Bro, drowning, what the heck?
Ain't nobody finna help you, you dumb bitch. You should never got in there. Your dog finna stick right here and you. Yeah.
You're loud, boy. Dang, bro, you scared to see a dead person?
Hell no, I ain't scared to see no dead person. You don't understand. That bitch should never got in there.
Oh, he is done.
Bro, what, bro?
Oh, he stinks. Hey, God. You laugh.
Y'all laughing. Y'all finna get
I can't say it, buddy. He's dead. Oh,
Hey, bro, come on, buddy.
no, bro, stay here. Right down.
We just saw Birdie die. We couldn't help him, Dad. We didn't even try to help him.
Cut it. Yeah, go help him, Barry. Go help him.
No, bitch.
This man ain't getting back up. Yeah, he did. But he gone. R.I.P.
On, is you ever gonna hit the blunt?
Hold on, baby. Yeah, let me hit that bitch.
Before you became a scientist, did you believe that it was a spiritual battle before becoming a scientist?
For sure.
You believe it was spiritual.
Yeah.
But after you became a scientist, you believe it is physical.
So I'm okay with both. Probably it's not the answer you want.
No. I'm not looking for a specific answer.
Okay.
You're a very interesting person, so I'm trying to find out how you think, how you see things. Was it easy to convince you that is not a spiritual thing, but a physical thing?
Oh, no. And I'm always constantly conflicted on that question.
Oh, okay.
So again, it took years and years and years of running experiments because I'm a skeptic by nature, and so I want to make sure that I have enough evidence that something is really happening, some mechanism in the brain is causing this behavior, or largely causing it.
But when you're not angry and you have, the love of God working through you, it affects the body in a positive way. You don't get sick and you don't go nuts and your brains function well. Have you noticed that?
Oh, we've seen it in data for sure. So
is it possible then that if you had the spiritual part in the right, operating from the right influence, then the oxytocin and everything else will function in the way it should?
I think that's exactly right.
Oh,
so
okay.
I think I think you can be good without God, but God helps to establish the parameters in which you can live a healthy, productive life. And just neurologically, perhaps more information you need, but oxytocin reduces physiologic stress, so you're less likely to get diabetes, heart disease, stroke, if you're connected in a loving manner to the people around you.
And how is it possible to be good without God?
I think because
only God is good.
I think we can be good in terms of behavior because we have this internal moral compass driven largely by oxytocin that gives us feedback from the other humans on what's appropriate and inappropriate. And our brain essentially is keeping a scorecard, and it's adding up, oh, here's when the humans didn't like me so much, and here's when the humans did like me so much, and it makes the stuff that humans like, it makes us feel good, and therefore it says, keep doing those things. Again, unless you got bad genes, bad environment, we just don't get that positive feedback.
Are you absolutely sure about this? And that this oxytocin having this effect on us rather than a spiritual effect?
I think there's no absolutes in science. All we can say is that the bulk of the evidence suggests that oxytocin is a key mechanism in the brain that motivates us to behave in moral ways.
You spoke about emotions in one of your talks. Define empathy for me.
Empathy is sharing another person's emotional state. right?
Oh, that's not good.
It is good. When
I don't want to.
When I saw your producer, Bill, he looked pensive and he was worrying me, and I talked to him for about 5 minutes. I said, "What are you worried about, my friend? why are you?"
Oh, that's what you mean by sharing, about being concerned about it.
So yeah, I can pick up those emotions.
Okay.
Now the downside is that these brain systems are very. So I want to get back to your point. These brain systems are very adaptive, and so as I've tried to as a super nerdy, geeky guy, become more empathic and feel people's emotions better, release more oxytocin, I suffer more because I see the people around me suffering more. I'm not sure that's a bad thing, but it does take energy away. And so we have found that individuals who are more empathic by personality trait, who are more agreeable, tend to release more oxytocin. They tend to have more friends. They tend to be happier.
But emotional people tend to switch. They're never the same. They may change if someone look at them in the wrong way.
For sure.
Or if they think you think something about them, or if you
Right.
disagree with them, they can switch just like that.
For sure.
How can that kind of person be trusted when you know that they can switch at any point? Emotional people don't give you the right to be free, to think differently, to act differently, to be you. They want you to agree with them or change them. So how can that kind of person be trusted?
That's such a profound statement. I love that. I'm not sure trust is the right word. I think it's accepting that people are different and that some people are so swayed by the emotional state that their behavior changes. But it doesn't mean they're bad people. It just means they're so much more sensitive that they're kind of all over the map.
But you can't trust them then, right?
Well, they're going to surprise you, but sometimes that's interesting.
Would you trust an emotional person?
I don't think we have. I think our emotionality runs on a continuum, and so I think people who are extraordinarily emotional, probably not so much.
Yeah.
But outside a range of real pathology, we're all emotional at some level.
If people were to forgive their violators, starting with their parents first, and God take away the anger, the spirit of anger, they wouldn't be up and down emotionally, and they can be trusted. And you can know that they'll keep their word. You can agree and disagree, and no big deal. What do you think about that? So I've not had a bad day in 28 years.
Yeah, well, good for you.
And I've not experienced anger in 28. It's not in me anymore.
Wow.
Because it was a spirit that was taken away from me by way of forgiving the people who did it to me.
Well, again, we certainly know neurologically also how that happens. So again, I don't want to discount the spiritual state. My own expertise is in the physical realm, and I'm going to leave the spiritual state to the experts like you. But I think they work together. So in the best case, if they work together, then having a spiritual practice, having the ability to create one's own insight into, my parents are imperfect, your parents are imperfect.
Right.
But often they tried the best they could.
That's
and were very
right.
constrained.
Who were you? You were raised by both parents?
Both parents, right.
Father and mother there. Who were you closest to?
I had 3 sisters and no brothers, so my
Oh,
dad and
my
I
God.
would escape to the garage and build things. My mother was a former nun.
I like the word escape because that's exactly what it is.
Yeah. So my mother was a former nun, so she was really the expert on morality in the household, and was very serious Catholic, but there was no choice in that. So it wasn't like I had a choice. So that's why I think I became a skeptic, because I wanted to experience for myself or understand for myself, where good and evil came from.
Who were you closest to, your father or mother?
Very close to both. I wouldn't differentiate.
But you have to be closer to one that more so than the other.
I think my personality is more like my mother, and my interests are more like my father.
Oh, okay.
I'm a mix.
So you're both man and woman?
Everyone is. We all start out as women. Anyway.
Oh, you said that last
in
night
utero,
in talk. You said that when we are born, we're all born female.
Yeah, that's the body. That's the basic body plan is female, and then the testosterone kicks in about week 4, and then the male differentiation happens. By the way, not just on the genitals, but in the brain as well.
I've heard that before, and I don't know what you think about that. So you believe our battle then is a physical battle and not a spiritual one?
Our battle with good and evil?
With life, yeah. Good and evil, life, or one another, the challenges.
I'm happy to say both.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
You recommend getting a minimum of 8 hugs a day. Is that true?
Yes.
So every day I need to go and hug 8 people?
You don't have to do anything, Jesse.
But if I want to have this oxytocin working and feeling good all day, I need 8 hugs.
If you want to get the stress relieving benefit, the improved immune system, you can give the gift of a hug to somebody else and they'll generally hug you back. So it's a way to actually connect yourself to other people and get the health benefits of this.
But how about when you hug a person like Billy, who does not like to be hugged?
I know.
And when you hug him, he's going to be stone cold. Won't that kill the love?
We're going to break through his stone coldness. I'll give him a hug when we finish up.
You going to give Billy a hug?
I am.
Wow. I want to ask you this. What is a man?
It's a human being with a Y chromosome.
A human being with a Y chromosome.
Yeah.
And what is love?
Love is an increase in the positive emotions between 2 or more individuals.
And what is hate?
Hate is a decrease in the positive emotion.
My final question, did you have fun?
I had a great time.
Well, thank you for coming.
Next time on The Fallen State.
That's amazing, man, that you got 4 wives. So let me ask, like for you, does it help your ego to have these many beautiful women in one household?
Naturally, it does.
Oh, man. How many more are you going to add?
I wouldn't be able to put a number on it per se. I feel the heat.
Thanks for watching The Fallen State. We need your continued support. Donate to my nonprofit here. Subscribe and like the videos here. And tell everybody and their mama about the show.